So how can you acquire control over a company in terms of the takeover code? The word control has been very specifically defined in the SEBI substantial acquisition of shares and takeover regulations. And we will have a look at it to understand what control exactly means. So if we look at the definition, which is in Regulation 2(1)(e) of the SEBI substantial acquisition of shares and takeover regulations, control includes the right to appoint majority of directors or to control the management or policy decisions exercisable by a person or persons acting individually or in concert, directly or indirectly, including by virtue of their shareholding or management rights or shareholders agreements or voting arrangements or in any other manner, provided that a director or officer of a target company shall not be considered to be in control over such target company merely by virtue of holding such position. Now, if we break this definition down into different pieces, it's an inclusive definition first of all, which means that if there is any other mechanism whereby an acquirer is exercising control over a target entity, it will not be ruled out entirely. Okay, the facts and circumstances of the cases will be seen to arrive at this conclusion whether there was control over or not. Okay, so it's an inclusive definition, and it states that it includes the right to appoint majority of the directors. Okay, so even if you don't hold any shares in the company, if you have the right to appoint majority of directors of the company, that means you have control over the company. Or to control the management or policy decisions exercisable by a person or persons acting individually or in concert. Now, if you are exercising control, or you are deciding, you are taking decisions on how someone who is actually a shareholder or a voting rights holder decides or votes in a company, then that means that you have an indirect element of control over how that company is functioning or how management or policy decisions in that company are taken. Okay, if I were to give you a very simple example, it will be the subsidiary of a subsidiary. Now, the holding company in this case may not be exercising, may not be holding any shares or voting rights directly in a subsidiary, in a step down subsidiary, but it virtually controls how the management or policy decisions are taken in that case, because it controls the holding company of that company, right? So if in any indirect manner also there is a chance that the management or policy decisions which are exercisable by someone are controlled by a person, then that means that that person has control over the operations, including by virtue of their shareholding or management rights or shareholders agreements or voting agreements. Now, these are the different methods or manners in which someone can actually exercise control. So control can be exercised either by shareholding. Okay, so you hold majority shares and you control the operations, or you have management rights. There are specific management rights which are assigned to you by virtue of an agreement, or there is a shareholders agreement that you have entered into, which means that people will act in terms of that agreement. They'll vote on specific decisions only in a specific manner, or that they cannot proceed with certain decisions without your consent or agreement to it. Then that's also an element of control. Or voting agreements. Now, this is very typical because of their own, there can be minority shareholders who do not have enough shareholding to control the decisions in the company. But when a lot of these minority people or minority shareholders get together and actually enter into a voting agreement stating that all of them will vote in a specific manner on a resolution, then that means that combined or put together, they will be able to exercise control, or they will be able to influence the decision making in a company. That also can amount to a control. And acquisition of control in any form or in any manner, irrespective of whether the shareholding or voting rights are held or not, amounts to an acquisition under the takeover code, and the person who gets such control becomes an acquirer.